New. This is my first time actually taking you guys on a trip into a crawl space and showing you guys how I go about actually fixing these issues that have plagued this crawl space. You guys get an inside look at what it takes. Not a lot of people go into their crawl spaces. I mean, they're full of rodent, excrement, the fungus, mold, moisture issues, standing water, they're cold, spiders, and you name it, silica dust, asbestos. It's who knows what can be going on down there. They're not very comfortable. This will give you a little bit of insight at what it takes to actually put things back together. For every job, I document everything, every step of the way, every minute of every day. Every time I'm doing something towards your house, there's a photo that's timestamped, there's video, and it's not just for social media and marketing content. All of my documentation is for a purpose, and that's what I'm using today to educate you guys. Let's dig into this, and you guys are gonna be in for a treat. So we got a crawl space here, and you can see that we have some rot on this post. You can actually see in this far one that the footing is off kilter and it's eroded away. On that back far corner, we got a sump pump that we're installing, and so we had to dig a new pit. The one that was in there wasn't really doing its job. So let's address this structural issue first. I like the only way to do a concrete, the crawl space, is by buckets. That's the only way you're gonna get it in there. I basically put a small little form together, a little bit of 5.5, some treated lumber, and you can see that we have a very tight space. There isn't really a lot of room, and when you're trying to move a bucket that's full of concrete from one end all the way to the other end of the crawl space, it's not easy. It's definitely not fun, but it has to happen. You can kind of see just getting it over. When you're on your knees and right under it, most crawl spaces have, it would be nice if it had sand, but they have rock, cement trunks. What they do is they pump out their cement, whatever's left, and they'll just dump it into the crawl space because it, takes care of their cleaning at the end of the day. So they have a place to put that concrete. You can see me here. I got another half bucket of drainage rock that I'm gonna use as a base for this footing. And I'm basically doing that for, concrete, it's porous, and so I want a little bit of drainage stone at the bottom and make sure it's nice and level underneath this beam that's running from one end of the crawl space to the other. And the existing beam, even though it's messed up, what it is it's off, and you'll actually see the before and after, but basically just doing a little bit of concrete work. Once everything's into place, I tap each side to get all the bubbles out. And then you can see me here. I'm just cutting up some rebar. That's a nice little tool, the Milwaukee M12 multi. It's like a little tiny angle grinder, but basically that rebar, people think that it adds, structure to concrete, but it doesn't. Even if it's a wire mesh that you're putting down there, what it does is it holds it together. In case it does, break apart, it doesn't just fall off in pieces. Those pieces of metal are there to kind of just hold everything together. Just because nobody's ever going to see it doesn't mean I just want to go and, I want to make it look good. I just want to do something to do it. Call it taking pride in your work, but I'm going to float this bad boy out and make it smooth. Got my level, make sure I'm putting my post underneath the center of that boy. Usually I would use a plumb bob, but I had my level, and then I could just measure 3.5 off by that. So, and there it is, right solid and in the middle. Let's tackle that sump pump. In a previous video, you could see what I was working with, just this old deteriorated sump pump that has been there for 20 years. The homeowners didn't even know they had a sump pump. But I went ahead and I put a new sump pump in there. We dug a new basin, or we dug a new sump pit, and we got that nice drainage stone in there. Put holes in it, and then the homeowner already has a tile system in there, and so water is rushing in from the perimeter of that crawl space into that basin. That's basically all of the storm water is just basically coming off of the roof and back in and flooding the crawl space year after year, just eroding everything. And so we have our work with the city really paid off, and we were able to discharge into a culvert system just right outside the home, and we were able to pull permits and do all that nice and legal wise, so that the county inspector could come off and sign off on everything and approve of everything.
That's good.
That's usually a big hurdle, and so being able to deal with local government and making sure everything's done the right way is super important. We got a check valve, and I'm just wrapping this little bad boy up, making sure that there's that little hole down by the threaded union. And I love that little M12 bandsaw, man. It's one of my favorite tools. So quick, so clean. Now we got a good drop, a check valve.
Pretty good.
Check valve's in the right position. I like to make sure that the sump pump is not hugging too close to that wall. Usually that'll disengage the float valve. We want everything nice and centered. Good pitch on everything. And then now we're setting up to do Visqueen. And so basically that old Visqueen, that old 6 mil loose lay, had to come out. It was just time to change it. Most of the time it's just got holes in it. It's been beaten up by erosion. Like I said, this crawl space is flooded year after year, season after season, and so a lot of dirt ends up on top of that as the water moves underneath and
nice and new
rises. So we got her some new. And the great thing about it is just because I'm doing all this work, it's not see ya, adios, have a good life. No, I'll be back in the fall once the weather turns, and I'm gonna be maintenancing. Got a maintenance log. Got to make sure everything holds up, and then I will go back at the end of the season, headed out to the end of spring, to make sure everything did its job the way it should be. Here you can actually see I'm setting up the discharge pipe, coring into the side of that wall. Is not fun. It actually takes a very expensive drill bit to core through that bad boy. But you can see me here tying up that 1.5 inch into a 2-inch donut into a Y.
These real quick.
And I like using Ys mainly because you don't lose velocity to teeing up into when you're either going into SDR 35 or Schedule 40 PVC. You want that Y, regardless of what it is super important in maintaining water flow, the flow of water away from the structure, and just giving it momentum to shoot out towards that culvert. So you'll see that this 1.5 inch to 2 inch is going into a 4-inch Y, and that bad boy will move. It'll move gallons. Usually moves about around like 250 gallons per minute. That'll be pumped out of there. And so all of the work that we did around the perimeter of the home, setting up that drain pipe, you got to remember, this house had no storm drain, none. And so that is what we rectified before we put in the sump pump. And so now we're basically just giving it a path and basically getting it away. And so busting out, I'm using my hacksaw this time. It's just what I had handy near me. And yeah, we're just about ready to wrap this bad boy up. We're gonna backfill all of this area, make sure these pipes are insulated. Now the grading is at a drop, so that we got plenty of drop between that and the culvert. So it's constantly maintaining flow and so that'll really go a long way during the winter. And what we don't want is we don't want water just sitting in there so that it can freeze and crack. And so when we go to backfill this, or when you're doing your grading, you definitely want to have angle, slope.
Nice pitch. That's a wrap.
And that's it. I mean, thanks for hanging out with us. It was kind of cool to get you guys a first-person view of what it takes to work in such a tight environment. And usually, if you're claustrophobic, you ain't doing crawl space work, man. It's just not in the cards for you. So, call your boy. Holla at your boy.